Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Sonia McGowan. I am so happy you're here with me for our monthly webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about eat, sleep, poop, and what your child's behavior is telling you. It's probably kind of a weird title, but whenever I'm with a family and I'm doing a history or an exam, in my mind, there are three questions that I'm always wanting to make sure I answer. How does the child eat? How do they sleep? And how do they poop? So I just thought I would turn that into a webinar so you can kind of see what my thought process is. So in case you don't know me, I am, again, Sonia McGowan. I am the owner of Covenant Pediatric Wellness Center and Covenant Pediatrics in Jefferson City, Missouri. I am married to my husband, Shannon. He is now retired, but he spent a long career as a CPA. We have two kiddos. Libby, this is her. She is living in Kansas City now. She's a grown-up girl. She's a music director for School of Rock in Overland Park, Kansas. And I love this picture because, gosh, I think she was like 15 or 16, and we were in Kansas at an open mic night, and that's her playing bass, and that's me behind her playing drums. So talk about a bucket list moment. That was very cool. And then this is our son, Rowan. He is 20. He is in college now in Illinois. But he is really sort of the reason for everything here, because when he was a little guy, he had lots of things to overcome. He, at 6 months of age, quit sleeping, just out of the blue, quit sleeping, never slept more than about 45 minutes to an hour at a time. So he'd sleep a little bit. He'd be up for hours and hours, and this was around the clock. He had horrible eczema. He had terrible diarrhea. He was nonverbal until he was about 4. So it was a hard road because everywhere I took him, everybody said he was fine, that he was nonverbal and that he had behaviors and he had eczema and diarrhea because he had an older sister or because I was a helicopter mom. It was, and it was ridiculous. And in my mind, I kept thinking it just shouldn't be so hard to find help for your kid. And so all of this was happening as I was in chiropractic college. So being a chiropractor is a second career for me. I started my career working with kids with autism. So I knew that I had reason to worry. And so no one helped us. And it was hard and it was frustrating. And so I just decided to help ourselves. And I followed Sidney Baker's work. If you don't know Dr. Sidney Baker, he's an absolute giant in the field. And I followed his work and I changed Rowan's diet and we started him on supplements. And by kindergarten, he was indistinguishable from his peers. And so, I always think about how hard it was to find help for him. And I don't want other families to feel the way I felt. So we made a place where families can come for help. And then, of course, we have our Ozzy. He's our 2-year-old sheepadoodle. When the nest got empty, we got Ozzy. So he's a good boy. All right. So let's talk about what we do here at Covenant. So our main focus is complex kids. So we do a lot of functional nutrition. I'm a MAPS trained doctor, Medical Academy of Pediatrics and Special Needs. And so I have years and years of very in-depth training on how to help complex kids. We also do pediatric chiropractic. We have hyperbaric oxygen. We have ion cleanse. We do a lot of work around oral restrictions because that's a really big deal for a lot of kids. We do prenatal and pediatric chiropractic. We also see adults. So we do functional nutrition testing for adults. We do chiropractic, HBOT, acupuncture, ion cleanse, etc. So you can get a lot of things here. We also have Covenant Pediatrics, which is a second practice under the same roof with Dr. Hannah Strong, who is a DO pediatrician. So when we talk about complex kids, what do I mean by that? So it can mean the obvious things like autism. It can mean the obvious things like ADD, ADHD, maybe PDA, PANS, PANDAS, sensory processing issues, retained primitive reflexes. It can also mean kids who have tethered oral tissues, tongue ties, lip ties. It can just be the kid who's got some behavior, language, and socialization challenges, but no one has put a name on it yet, right? Or a diagnosis. And it can also mean what I call square peg, round hole kids. So these are kids who struggle. Maybe they're not great eaters. Maybe they aren't great poopers. Maybe they poop once a week, right? And they have behaviors because of that. Maybe they have eczema. Maybe they can't sit still in their classroom. So just kids who are struggling, but they kind of don't reach that threshold for an IEP or an official diagnosis or whatever. So that's what I mean when I say complex kids. So in terms of the eat, sleep, and poop, so why this matters. So these are foundational biological processes that are highly sensitive to when things go wrong. So often these are also the first things that will shift when a kid is struggling. So they're early warning signs. They're not just inconveniences. They're not things, if a kid is only pooping once a week, it's not something we wait and see on because, again, it's an early warning system, not an inconvenience. All right. So one of the things we say here a lot is the why matters. So there are no bad kids. There are no purposeless behaviors. We know that behavior is communication. We know that symptoms follow systems and that the body always has a reason for the things that it is showing us. And so this webinar really is primarily for parents of complex kids, parents who are early in the journey, parents who feel like they've tried everything, and we see a lot of those, right? Also, parents who've been denied basic labs for their child or who are told that labs are normal, and also professionals who are trying to help families figure this out and who are looking for a framework. So the pattern that we see over and over is persistent, troubling symptoms. Sometimes they're kind of low grade. They're not enough to reach the threshold of a diagnosis, but they're disrupting to the family. We often see labs that are normal, but families aren't getting answers and they're not getting progress. A lot of times we'll see escalating behavior. So things that start as what seem just sort of like inconvenient behaviors and things get bigger. And we see a lot of fragmented care. So there are a lot of, well-meaning professionals who want to help. They just don't have the depth of training and experience to do so. So in terms of effort, that's not the problem. Parents are working their tails off trying to figure out what's wrong with their kids, but they don't know who to go to. The people they go to don't have the strategies. So the problem is not a lack of trying on the parents' part, right? So many parents have sought multiple providers, multiple tests, multiple supplements, but they're getting really nowhere or just very little progress very slowly. And even worse, they're told that nothing is wrong or that it's just autism or it's just pandas or it's just fill in the blank. So why do we talk about eat, sleep, and poop here first? Because digestion is resource dependent, sleep is regulation dependent, and bowel function is detox dependent. So these are very biologically expensive processes, and they all affect each other. So the way a child eats affects how they sleep, which affects how they poop, which affects how they eat, and round we go. So the patterns that we see in kids who are complex, we see selective eating. We see kids who only will eat a certain thing or a certain way, right? Only certain textures, only certain colors, only certain times of day, only if certain rules are followed, right? We also see kids who crave things. So if parents put no limits on them, they would drink a gallon of milk a day, right? Or all they want are crunchy things, or all they want are high sugar things. We see a lot of belly pain. We see reflux. We see drooling. So drooling in kids who should be past that age is a very significant sign of reflux and belly pain. We also see kids who graze. So they don't want to sit down and just eat a meal. They want to just sort of be eating constantly throughout the day. And again, texture issues are big for a lot of kids. And sometimes texture issues are a sensory issue. Sometimes texture issues are because of tethered oral tissues. So tongue ties, lip ties, certain textures they just can't tolerate. And so when we've got a kid who's a selective eater, this affects their systems, right? So we'll see things in these kids like nutrient deficiencies. Often when they aren't eating the way they should, we'll see low stomach acid, and that will promote reflux and belly pain. We will see malabsorption and or dysbiosis. So they're not absorbing their nutrients, and this could be because there is a yeast or a bacterial overgrowth. We see a lot of inflammation. We see food allergies, food sensitivities. This can drive kids to be selective. We see oral restrictions, which affect digestion. And we see a lot of blood glucose instability. So these are kids who tend to get pretty hangry if they don't eat the right things at the right time. And so eating affects behavior. So commonly, when kids aren't great eaters, we will see things like irritability, anxiety, low stamina, and emotional dysregulation, just like you and I would feel if we had, blood sugar issues, for example. So sleep, let's talk about sleep. So here are a lot of the patterns that we see with sleep. The kids will become very hyper and or anxious at bedtime. We'll see kids who have trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, kids who will snore or breathe with their mouth open, so breathing through their mouth, not through their nose. We will see restless sleep. Parents also often tell us that kids will wake super early in the mornings. They will wake unrested. Parents will also tell us that they will laugh and talk in the middle of the night. Often they can't sleep alone, and they will have what we call parasomnias. So maybe the nightmares, night terrors, walking, talking in their sleep. And so when we think about the systems that are affected, airway issues and oral restrictions are always something we look at when a child is not a great sleeper. We'll see intestinal dysbiosis, yeast, bacteria, parasites. Those are also very common because those, particularly parasites, really like to sort of wake up and be irritating when a kid is trying to go to sleep. We will often see an iron deficiency. So when a parent says a child is not sleeping well, we always look at iron, particularly ferritin, which is the storage form of iron. We also see blood glucose instability. I'm looking for things like immune activation and nervous system dysregulation as well. So when sleep affects behavior, some of the things that we see are hyperactivity, irritability. We see emotions that are up and down like crazy. We see a lot of poor focus and sensory issues. So these are kids who get easily overwhelmed. They have a lot of sensory seeking or avoiding types of behaviors. All right, so let's talk about poop. The patterns that we see around poop are things like constipation. It is nothing for us to hear a family say, my kid only poops once a week or twice a month. Parents tell us about diarrhea very frequently, and then often alternating constipation and diarrhea. So they're constipated, but then the loose stool kind of breaks out around that. We see gas and bloating. We will see undigested food in the stool. A lot of times kids will withhold their poop because it's painful, it's dry, it's large. And so kids will work very hard to not poop. And then we'll see posturing too. So posturing is taking body positions that put pressure on the belly. So what I'm looking for when a parent tells me that their child has poop issues, I'm looking for poor digestion. I'm looking for malabsorption, and then dysbiosis due to things like yeast, bacteria, parasites. I'm going to be looking for inflammation impaired detoxification, and immune activation. And so poop, or the lack thereof, or the dysregulation of poop, will definitely affect behavior. So we'll see things like irritability and aggression. Sometimes we see self-injury, sleep disruption. Very often kids will become so constipated that it'll cause them to wet the bed or have urine or poop accidents during the day. When kids aren't great poopers, we also see low appetite. You're just not very hungry when you're stopped up that way. And then brain fog as well. And so this is an example of posturing. So these are two different kids. They do not know each other. They don't live anywhere near each other. But this is a really common posture that we see in kids who have a lot of belly pain and constipation. So when eating, sleeping, and pooping problems overlap, we see a lot of dysregulation. We see a lot of depleted resources. We see a lot of inflammation. And so when all of these things sort of come together, it's time that we dig in and see what we can figure out. So we here at Covenant, we test, we don't guess. And so we have lots of test options that are available. And what we choose depends on this child's symptoms and their patterns. So we have choices like urine, stool, blood spot, blood, saliva, hair, lots of choices. And what we're looking for is data. So data on deficiencies, on mitochondrial function, on dysbiosis, on inflammation, all the things that we've been talking about. And testing is very intentional. It's not random. It's not excessive. I'm always thinking about what test gives us the most pertinent information about this child right now, while considering how difficult is it going to be to get that sample, how expensive is it, what's the family's budget, what's the family's bandwidth, right? So it's very intentional, not random. And so functional testing makes sense because standard labs rarely show the why. And we know, of course, that the why matters. So standard tests are looking to rule out disease, but they don't explain dysfunction and they don't identify early patterns. And so one of the most common tests that I do is a urine test called the metabolomics from Genova Diagnostics. So it tons of things. It tells us about nutrient status. It tells us, can they turn their food into energy? It tells us about neurotransmitters. It tells us about intestinal issues, detox pathways, etc. So it's about 13 pages of very detailed information about this child. It requires a first morning urine. We do have some optional add-ons to look at things like heavy metals and certain genetics as well. And so this is a glimpse of that test. So you can see this is telling us about deficiencies. So lots of nutrients that it tests, and it tells us specifically where that child falls. Here you can see it tells us about dysbiosis markers. So is there malabsorption? Is it because of bacteria or yeast? Can they turn their food into energy? So fatty acid, carb metabolism, Krebs cycle. And then it tells us about neurotransmitters and detox markers. It also tells us about oxalates and fatty acids as well. We will often do what's called a CSA, or a comprehensive stool analysis. This is going to tell us about so many of the things that we talked about in the poop section, right? So it'll tell us, is there bacterial or yeast dysbiosis? It does a yeast and a bacterial culture. So it'll tell us specifically what yeast and bacteria are present in the intestine. It tells us about inflammation, how well they're digesting, and how is their immune system functioning specific to the intestine. So here's that culture for bacteria. So this is the beneficial bacteria or flora here and the levels, and then any sort of imbalanced or dysbiotic flora, and then yeast as well. It will tell us about some additional viruses and pathogenic bacteria. And then here's the section that tells us how well are they digesting, what does inflammation look like, what does the immune system look like, and then short chain fatty acids as well. So again, that's a stool test, a stool collection. So not the most fun thing in the world, but it doesn't take very much, and the price is reasonable as well. Sometimes we'll do what's called the P88. This is a food allergy and sensitivity test. So when you're looking at food allergies and sensitivities, there are lots of different panels available. Prices depend on how many foods it looks like. Is it allergies and sensitivities, etc.? So allergies always require a blood draw, but sensitivities can be a blood draw or a blood spot, so a finger stick. This is the P88 food allergy and sensitivity test that I do. It's just a glimpse, but you can see the foods here. You can see allergies and sensitivities, and then this last column tells us about inflammation, so inflammatory foods. I will often do a test called the Neural Zoomer Plus, especially if I'm suspicious of PANS and PANDAS. So this is available as a blood spot or a blood draw. It tests for strep and the most common viral triggers, so things like HHV6, HHV7, Epstein-Barr, etc. So again, it's especially applicable to rule out PANS and PANDAS or just to get more information about PANS and PANDAS. So this is the summary page. It tells us what is positive in terms of antigens and infections. So we have positive, over here we have moderate, and then these are all the things that were negative. So you can see all the things that it tests. So we have CMV, Epstein-Barr, and others. We also have brain inflammation, brain autoimmunity information, blood-brain barrier disruption, demyelination antigens. All of this is very important for us to figure out kids who have PANS and PANDAS. So interpretation is critical, and this is usually the missing piece from most providers. So labs require context. The order and the priority of the tests that we do matter, and this is where we are different, because I know when I was struggling with Rowan, I had a provider do the right test for him, but had no idea how to analyze it. And so this person handed me these results and said, you can probably analyze these better than me. So never mind, I'd never seen that test before, but we figured it out. So we find the data first, and then we build the plan. So when I'm looking at results, I'm taking all of that data and I'm putting it together as a big picture. So I look at what order we're going to go in, what priority are we going to put these different findings in, and then how we're going to give targeted support to that child and family, and then realistic pacing too, because many of these kids have just so many things going on, and we can't do everything at once. We have to prioritize and then go in an order and at a pace that makes sense. So a plan might include, again, depending on patterns, generally we look at correcting deficiencies and restoring mitochondrial function first. We want to support detoxification. We want to support intestinal health. We want to make sure that immune response is nice and stable. Sometimes we have to make dietary shifts. So, if just depending on the child, sometimes they need to be dairy-free or gluten-free or egg or soy-free. And we help the family work through that. And so why we get such great results here is because we're finding and addressing the root cause. We're not suppressing symptoms. We're testing, we're not guessing, and we go in the right order. And so we just get really great results with kids. And so what I really want you to take away today is, please remember, there are no bad kids. Their behaviors happen for a reason. We have to find the root cause, because nothing is just autism. If you have a provider tell you that the constipation or the fill in the blank is just because of autism, find another provider. If you're told, oh, we don't work with kids with autism, consider that a blessing and go somewhere else. Symptoms aren't random. The pattern of the symptoms matter a lot. And doing the right tests with good interpretation will definitely change your outcome. All kids deserve appropriate examination and testing, no matter what their diagnosis is, no matter what their behaviors are. You need to be an advocate for your child to have an appropriate exam, history, and testing. I cannot tell you the number of families who have brought their kids to me, and I will do my exam, which is a hands-on exam, and the family will say, "You are the first doctor who's touched my kid." That's ridiculous, right? And it doesn't matter to me if the child is aggressive. It doesn't matter to me if they spit on me or pinch me or hit me, right? It just doesn't matter. You still have to do a thorough exam with this child. And another key takeaway, and I feel like I say it 4 times a day, every single day, that it shouldn't be so hard to get help for your kid. So, next steps. If you're concerned about your child, we have a lot of ways to help you. So we can do nutrition testing, we can do intestinal health testing. And again, the difference with us is that we're masters at analyzing those results, and we offer a comprehensive plan based on what those results tell us. So a few things that you can do. We have a functional testing and nutrition guide on our website. It's free. You just download it. It'll give you some nice information. You can attend our upcoming webinars. So I'm not doing one in March, but on April 3rd, we're going to be talking about low cholesterol. Low cholesterol is a very big deal for complex kids in terms of behavior, cognition, development, all of it. And then on May 8th, we're going to be talking about PANS and PANDAS. Very pertinent, very important topic. So you can also take a look. We have tons of resources on my sister website called thewhymatters.net. And we also have lots of resources on our YouTube channel. So you can just type in @Covenant Wellness and you'll find me. You should consider functional nutrition. If you're worried about your child or yourself, we do work with adults. So definitely consider a nutrition consult if you are at all concerned about yourself or your child. I do have just a short waiting list. It's only a few weeks. And we generally will split that appointment into 2. So we'll do a history appointment and then we'll do the exam, because I really don't like to talk about the child in front of them. Nobody wants to hear what their limitations and challenges are. So if you are interested in making an appointment, the best way is to just call the front desk and ask for Brittany, or email her, Brittany, Brittany, @covenantwellness.net. So here's our contact information, my email address, this is our office number, both of our websites, and then our socials are all @Covenant Wellness. So that's the story about eat, sleep, and poop and what your child's behavior might be telling you. So I hope you learned a lot. I hope that it was helpful and worth your time. I'll give you just a second to drop in any questions that you might have. Otherwise, I'm going to let you go and let you get on with your day. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. And don't forget, we have our next webinar is April 3rd, talking about low cholesterol. All right, guys, have a great day. It was great to see you.